sack on his back in which he dared not look. As the day wore on, he became fatigued, and he stopped and set the sack down to rest by a tree. His victim in the sack had not died, but only lost consciousness. He now revived at being tossed upon the ground, emerged from the sack, and while the murderer, who was only a murderer now in a manner of speaking, was sleeping, the victim strangled him with the sack. For a few moments, the victim, who was only a victim now in a manner of speaking, stood over the other's body in triumph. Then, looking around quickly to make sure he had not been seen, he put the other's body in the sack and put it on his back. He dared not look inside it. Hello, and welcome to Tranas at the Fringe. My name is George Mario Angel Quintero, and I am speaking to you from Medellin, Colombia. I'd like to read a few other short pieces of mine and share with you some of the different moments of imaginative prose and poetry that I have written over the last years. This next piece is from a novella of mine, a short novella called A Cuddle. And this is the opening moment in which a romance may or may not be flowering. It's called Hey, After Nonny Nonny. Red Heart slid brachioradialis over a snowy plainness and stopped at the tip of a radius with an acrylic clack. Above all, a grey dawdle of aimless puffing. There was a boisterous indolence in the way her hand dropped away, and calves wandered and tipped with anticipation. Sniffing about beneath the swaying junipers like a fidgety insect in a jar, Trundlebrooder whirly wound his way up into the fluff, a spiral that to them meant spring, though he threatened to tip his buckets at any moment, hard at woof, grey and overalled. There was talk of sticky pink and huddled, tunneled gliding, and perhaps even a skeletal thumping on the rail, but then she turned toward the small, tree-ringed lake, and bucolic mumblings bubbled up within her, the flowers on her dress seeming to open their petals all the more, and he heartily agreed. Waterside it was. The packed air had softened the brief thicket he brambled her through to escape the last wrappers and muddy bottles, and they found themselves in the shade-dappled coolness of undersea shrubbery, where neither Brother Huff nor the wound, clowning music could get at them. He, quite happy with her shiver, and imagining the moon sea a few hours hence, only grunted when she insisted they push waterward. In grumbled time, he brought her to a buzzing and muddy inlet, and it just wouldn't do. So, hand in hand and tree-hidden, they squelch-skirted the lapping moss shallows away from the path and the last sounds. The place they found was quiet enough, no outcry, for these were naturalistic workings after all, and no bird had time to hem or haw, but had to be about its business, flit and flecking here and there with butterfly tenaciousness, here on the outskirts of tenacity, there a yellow dab, prolonging the fireflies and fiddlers who were still dusting off their bulbs and waxing up their bows respectively. This was no municipal metal tootling, with the plaque progeny of stubby and tepid drinking fountains and squat tanned lovers' benches dropped practically beneath every bush. This was an almost fawn Faust frolic, and the little sails of their imaginations puffed up. Why, here There were even lily pads for our clodhoppers to skip their pixie wishes across. The lake, which couldn't wince, only blistered. What's this? A red blanket unfurled, a shade hotter than her bracelet? From where? Even Nobo Pappy had to coyly smile down a few balmy rays at this. And they pied the blanket as they tried to affix the tree leaves in their fall. And then bent knee and lowered lashes, public schools be praised. Now his heart had been sent clacking as he looked down at the pirate flag to sail upon. Talk trickled as he took his place beside her in the warm glare, eyelidding islands and yawning clouds as the breeze, their keeper, rode the radio sonde of their first precipitations. Fingertips scudded over Tara's gardens, blush blossoming, hastened over fastens, scratching at latches only to linger tip-tied, nailed to a stutter, tongue lacquering the afternoon, still just lipped. Much of my work is written in Spanish. And so I'd like now to read you a poem of mine. It's about an apocalypse. It's about the end of the world, but the end of the world that is much more likely, which is the end of the world were nature to take back the planet. So it's a green apocalypse. And it was written in Spanish originally. So what I'm going to do is, it's a rather long poem, but I'm going to read interspersed stanzas in English and in Spanish. So you'll hear the original stanza first in Spanish, and then you'll hear it in English. Fin en verde, end in green. Horrible como llegó la vida en hongos masivos de vapor, olorosa y amarilla, su marea se avecina en olas desde la distancia, mientras sobre la playa caen cenizas desde esqueletos de edificaciones calcinadas, aquí a la orilla de este mar de polen. Horrible how life came in massive mushrooms of steam, smelly and yellow. Its tide comes closer in waves from the distance, while on the beach ashes fall from the skeletons of charred constructions, here at the shore of this sea of pollen. En vez de nubes, cadenas de semillas gigantescas estallan en manchas flotantes que atraviesan el calor. En esta instancia, en el giro primaveral, hojas traducen la luz y levantan las sortijas de tallo que abrazan y esmaltan los pilares de un cielo en espiral. Instead of clouds, chains of gigantic seeds explode in floating stains that cross the heat. In this instance, in the vernal turning, leaves translate the light and lift the curling stems that embrace and enamel the pillars of the spiral sky. En una llovizna tibia cae el sudor sobre vitrinas vacías en pasajes que nunca se estrenaron. Crecer ejerce presión por fuera y por dentro. Cada cráneo es un botón. Florece y ya abierto se colora. The sweat falls as a warm drizzle on empty shop windows in alleys that were never used. Growing exerts pressure from without and from within. Each cranium is a bud. It flowers and once open takes on color. Como un anciano lento y pesado, las aguas fétidas escalan las alturas paso a paso. Sus superficies ya barbudas de tanta copulación y roce embadurnan los riscos con su verdete. Like a codger slow and heavy, the fetid waters climb the heights step by step, their surfaces now bearded from such copulation and rubbing. They smear the cliffs with their patina. Lo mío es nada, un rostro asomado momentáneamente, mientras el agua, ese espejo repleto, sube hacia el cielo, hasta que los dos firmamentos se besan, y yo, que sentía la luz caer sobre mí, ¿qué respiraré de ese estruendo? ¿Qué será de un loto más al aplastarse contra una estrella? My bit is nothing, a face peering out for a moment while the water, that brimming mirror, rises toward the sky until the two firmaments kiss. And I, that felt the light fall upon me, what will I breathe in of that clamor? What will happen to yet another lotus as it is crushed against a star? Pero sin pausa ni suspiro, los soles se empapan y los planetas se disuelven. But without a pause or sigh, suns are drenched and planets dissolved. Luego el drenaje, las islas se amortiguan como esponjas, chorrean su peso por debajo hacia una gula abierta y oscura. Then the draining, the islands that cushion like sponges, trickle their weight out their bottoms like toward gluttony, open and dark. Hablemos entre nos, entre desechos orgánicos. Let's keep this between us, we, bits of organic waste. La sílaba que tapa infecta de urbe a los sépalos por los cuales ventea la luz. The syllable which covers infects the calluses with metropolis. The light blows through them. Comunicarse es compartir fiebre. To communicate is to share fever. El despliegue de hojas que son cielos cubre danzas de espigas trenzadas en roscas. Estas iluminan las costillas palpitantes alrededor de cada semilla. Giran amarillas entre rayos que enuncian en cascadas lúcidas como destellar hasta sus bocas. The unfolding of leaves that are skies covers the dances of sprigs braided in wreaths. These illuminate palpitating ribs around each seed. The spin, yellow, between bolts of lightning that enunciate in lucid cascades how to sparkle even their mouths. Crecer es sugerir, to grow is to suggest. Una estrellada noche encerrada en un capullo, vainas maracan y el agua sube, estambres atrapados en las coronas de sus chozas buscan cómo punzar el tejido de sus techos silenciosos. Las palabras traspasan y cada habitación brota espinas. A star-struck night, sealed in a bud, husks rattle and the water rises. Trapped stamens in the crowns of their huts look to puncture the thatching of their silent ceilings. Words pierce through, and each habitation sprouts thorns. ¿Cómo aferrarse a piedra inconclusa? But how to cling to such inconclusive rocks? Now I'd like to read 3 childhood moments and end with a coda. The first, number 1, attic. What does the child see from the window? He sees the hard wall of the night air, and there the black areas without outline or volume. There are no mountains where the black remains. Suppose the mass of mountain range fallen into the black shape and gone, and the passing shapes are black. Suppose the mass of mountain range fallen into the black shape and gone. And the passing shapes are black, rubbing up against each other like thick paper. Intersecting black shapes hint at a path broken through the bottom of the night air. How many absences are moving in the dark? The child feels himself bisected by a giant darkness. He has imagined it in the shape of an iceberg. there where he lies halved on the wooden boards like a broken doll. He feels it tip within him. He imagines climbing it, one hand on either side. His legs are splayed out. At the window, he hopes for the impossible colored birds to fill the black shapes that glide and eliminate the small lights. It is mostly black now. Maybe somewhere, pulled along on a chain, there's a small red car filled with yellow birds. He imagines the black shapes rumbling, but they are silent. Even though the child walks calmly down the middle of the street between paper trees, his head begins to roll away from his body in the attic. Out the window, like a rolling silver coin, antique somehow, a disconnected headlight is an empty bowl. The child's head rolls further. He lies upon the wooden boards, reflected in an abandoned ornament whose green surface is coated with a thin film. From the air here, as well as the child's image. The child's head rolls from the black circle where the moon has fallen. There's a small paper dog whining to be let in beneath the porch light he has imagined. The child's head rolls further, like a lost ball between cars, his face still scrawled on it. From the window, his sadness pokes out like the beam of a flashlight. 2. Ballista and bassoon in March. Strung across on something, 8 stones deeply scratched with some small metal thing. The child's eyes are as big as thumbs above a mentioned mouth. The woman's eyebrows are too dark. Isabel? This name, perhaps on an envelope or hidden under the child's singing of a fidgety noise, turning it to strung stone. The child is serious. The woman's face is polishing. Laugh. Someone sleeping. This face pinched gentle. The rose and green of the beach blanket where it is folded changes the weather. The child's eyes at the end of 2 sticks as he is drumming as he is a bow-legged crab. Red from sleep. Light bends strings over wood, above wash, between poles, along singing like a sack of seeds shook. The woman's grace is unfolding. The child has chicken legs, bow-legging, in and about her. This is how, with the small aluminum doors of her opening on hinges. The child sees his face in the mirror there. She wants. The overlapping sheets of paper on the desk make a disorderly star of rectangles. It has begun raining in the branches. It can be heard on the ground. March is a vague sound between clouds above our melody of heads and the small flowers popping in the branches from the rain. Everything is built of houses, since feel means build and build means house. Houses in her face. The child turns round and round in his mask. The net of March is lifting, its few remaining days still in sight with their crossed harmonies. She raises her large clay hands, plants taking root in them and beginning to show. She raises them to the child whose body tips. Three, listening. Muriel's open head, the car horn's arabesques behind her like an unreal wrought iron gate, the corn stalks blooming yellow, you've seen them. She was a territory of recriminations. Heavy-necked sunflowers, her harangues, had given their seeds and now were lip-burnt. Her purse clicked for the 13.5, there was a muffled cluck once, time. And she wasn't tired. No, sir. The inside of that head was melon smooth and massive, like the urinal in a forgotten monument where, as a child, I had lost myself in thought amid the squawking of an invisible blue jay, a disembodied voice bathing my name. And yes, the percussive flushing of Muriel's stutter. And now, a coda. It's called Nervous Story. It isn't much of anything, really. Just a sort of pressure, a sort of waiting for the car to get there. My situation is much like most people's. That is to say, it isn't much of anything. So I find myself in the moment, the way people used to smoke cigarettes. One might surmise a certain emptiness, but the living of it is quite pleasurable, actually. There is still warm sunlight, the taste of something cool to drink. Don't think I'm advertising anything. Not really selling happiness among the ruins, if you know what I mean. What would you pay for it with? How would I deliver it? To lift you out of what must be unbearable curiosity, I'll tell you what all of this is about. Of course, what something is about isn't what it is it? In any case, I am on my way to give something. Mysterious human act, that. I do not know the person very well that I am giving the something to. I am not sure the something is the right something to be giving. And I am not sure the person is even remotely prepared to receive anything from me, much less this. I suppose this implies some vulnerability on my part, but to be absolutely truthful about the matter, giving is a kind of breathing habit. There is, of course, the concern of burdening, of how little time we all have, of impositions. But did the bird that just flew by my window just now ever wonder whether I would reject it? Yellow birds with striped heads often adorn my gifts. And desire, that tiger that prowls the department store. Where does she fit into all of this? I want this to take place in a train car. Train cars seem to me to be always passing through the middle of everywhere. I want this to be the first train car ride in history that fulfills its promise. I am not a philosopher. I am not sitting around wondering whether my oven has a soul or anything like that. I just think a bow tie is a nice touch now and then. Angels arabesque in lamentation in the evening sky. The world is fading, the color has been scraped from things, and where we would dwell, the wall is cracked. Your face is plain, and the birds beneath the trees listen to your sermons. Don't let the footsteps startle you. The train car lighting has always been a bit too direct, and your eyes take a moment to focus. Open your hands and receive this story. I can see the currents in the night air outside the train window. Forgive me if I have to run.